Jimmy is a 30-year veteran of the sports and entertainment industry. He is vice president of Kisway Mobile, a company that delivers sports events to mobile devices. He's also a professor in Georgetown University's Sports Industry Management program.
What is it about sports that can transcend, all these differences, you think?
It's like sports it's a global language, right? I think a couple of quotes I love is Nelson Mandela talks about how sports can really unify people, right? And the movie Invictus was so great about what happened in the Rugby World Cup in 1995. How it brought everything together, and I think Mandela really captures it well. Then Phil Knight also talks, the chairman, founder of Nike, talks about sports like rock and roll music. It's cultural, it's powerful, and sports and music, those are global languages.
China sees sports as an economic driver and has set out national goals around sports. One is to get 1/3 of the population to exercise regularly. Another is to ensure every community has a gym.
There's a push in China, as you well know, because of the Olympics, to really kind of drive a domestic interest in winter sports, everything from skiing to ice skating. Talk to us about the transformation we're likely to see in China as a result.
Yeah, I think collectively it's amazing what China's doing, and they're doing the right thing. I mean, I remember going to Beijing in 2002 for an Olympics sort of media marketing summit 6 years before the Beijing Olympics, and I remember going there. And it's my first time in I grew up in Tokyo, big city, but you get to Beijing, and I remember going in the department stores. There were more employees than there were people, and the middle class hadn't really yet formed yet. And just 6 years later, the middle class was forming in a big way, and I thought the Beijing Olympics were China saying we're open for business. And you think about the Olympic sponsors and the brands that were there, from Coca-Cola to Visa. I mean, a lot of Chinese didn't use credit cards until then, and Coca-Cola wouldn't distribute that widely in China. And the middle class started to form, and one thing middle class loves, they love brands, right? And then so I think they say now there are about 300 million Chinese that play soccer, 300 million that play basketball. That's almost the same population as the entire U.S. So to China's credit, to the leadership's credit, they've invested heavily in sports. They create this new economic plan, and now they're saying by 2025 they expect to generate the sports to be $775 billion revenue market. Isn't that staggering?
Of all sports, Jimmy says basketball has been one of the most successful at fostering cross-cultural exchanges between countries. Pro players such as Yao Ming, who played for the Houston Rockets, and Rui Hachimura, who currently plays for the Washington Wizards, have helped elevate the game in their home countries.
With basketball, talk to us about that bridge that it can create.
Yeah, that actually was amazing, because I've worked with the NBA for over 20 years, and I've been to every NBA All-Star weekend since '98. And Shaq was a big deal. Obviously Michael Jordan was a big deal. But that first year Yao Ming came, you would not believe the media. Like well over 100 just following him around, and he just changed the game. I mean, the popularity of the NBA in China exploded because of Yao Ming. And I think here, we're local guys, Wizards fans. Like one time Washington was playing Milwaukee, middle of the season, not real good teams, right? They each had a Chinese player, and the game was broadcast in China. They had 230 million people tune into a regular season basketball game. That's 2.5 times what the Super Bowl generates. And that's because you had one Chinese player on the Wizards and one on the Bucks. It shows what it can do.
Can you talk to us about the difficulties of that transition, going from one country to another, languages, the difficulties, and yet having to be that face, not just for an organization, but for an entire country in many respects?
No, I think it was really hard for Yao Ming to come here, learn the language, and he's playing in Houston. But he adapted well. He went through some injuries. Rui's a little bit different because he came here to go to college for 3 years. So when he got to Gonzaga as a freshman, he didn't speak English, but he had 3 years to learn the language. But when he came here for the press conference the morning after he was drafted 2 years ago, that was unbelievable, because all the Japanese media that were in New York for the draft actually took the train overnight. And so when they did the press conference, they did one in English and one in Japanese. There were more Japanese media than American media. And then I remember what Rui said. He goes, I may be only half Japanese, half Benin, but in my soul I'm Japanese. And it's really amazing the popularity of the Wizards and Rui in Japan. So the year before he came, the Wizards were pretty much last in jersey sales. And after Rui's first year, #1 jersey, 25% market share were Wizards, Rui Hachimura jerseys. And LeBron was 10%, and Curry at 8%. And that just shows like what the impact that one player can do.
Talk to us about sports diplomacy. I mean, these guys are ambassadors in a sense.
They really, really are. And I think of several. You said Yao, obviously, but I also think of Jeremy Lin. I mean, Jeremy Lin is more of what they call ABC. He's American-born Chinese. He didn't come from China like Yao did. But, I mean, when he came on the scene and exploded for the Knicks, that was unbelievable. I mean, I remember going to the Wizards game, was like his 3rd game here, and you saw like Asian grandmothers coming to the game, you know? And I thought maybe this was only popular with the Chinese or the Asians in America, but I'm emailing my friends in China, and it was a global phenomenon.
Is it a responsibility that many of them embrace, or is it seen as kind of a hindrance in a sense? What do you find with athletes?
I think it really broken down with athletes. Because I know that Steph Curry with Under Armour, he's the face of Under Armour, and when he went over to Asia, he totally embraced it. You know, and I still think back to, heck, I think the 90s, we're having a conversation with the chief marketing officer for Reebok. He goes, I signed Shaq to a deal and Allen Iverson to a deal. Who do you think's more popular in China? He goes, Shaq's too big. The Chinese aren't that, they can't relate to his size. But Allen Iverson's 6 feet tall, like 150 pounds, 160 pounds. The Chinese love Allen Iverson. You know, so it all depends on what, and Stephon Marbury's another great example. He went over to play in the Chinese basketball league, exploded, had his own shoe brand, and now he's beloved in China.
Yeah, I think they even have a statue for him. I mean, it's amazing.
Right.
Can you talk about certain sports where you see this more likely? We've talked a lot about basketball, but are there others where you see this this kind of bridge? Yeah,
soccer. So I think when you think about it, you know, 7+ billion people in the world, they say about 3.5 billion are soccer fans, and around 2 billion are basketball fans. I mean, soccer is the global sport, and you really see the expansion of the sport. I mean, you know, it's really big European sport, came to the U.S., it's trending very well now in the U.S., but the explosion's taking place in Asia. It's unbelievable. And Brazil is that's where the players come from. I think last year they exported about 400 Brazilian players went to play in leagues around the world. The next country was 100 players. And he can't go anywhere.
For Jimmy, sports are a passion that started in his childhood.
Jimmy, how do you think growing up in Japan shaped who you are as a sports guy, do you think?
That's a great question. So, you know, I grew up on Army bases. I had an American dad and Japanese mom, but I had a love of baseball. So I started playing t-ball, then I started playing baseball, and I think, you know, that's where I made friends, not just on my team at the Army base, but with the other American teams we played with, and then with the Japanese Little League teams. And back in the 70s, the Japanese Little teams were really good. And, you know, it's funny how I've become like a networker or a connector. But it goes back to baseball. Like, that's where I learned about being a good teammate, right? And like my best friend from 7th grade is my best friend 45 years later.
Wow.
And we played baseball together. So I think the love of baseball and the love of playing a team sport really, really started in Japan.
The way sports fans watch events is becoming more digital and more mobile, helping to turn the entire sports industry to an even more global experience.
Let's talk a little bit about the Olympics, because one of the things I read recently, you know, the athletes, the star athletes, they attract the fans. The fans attract, you know, the networks. The networks attract the ratings. The ratings attract the marketing, and it's this full circle. It's become kind of this spectacle, hasn't it?
Yes, it has.
And it's the backstories and all of that. Talk to us about how you've seen it evolve through the years.
Well, it's interesting. I started working for the small company AOL in 1995. You know, right here in the D.C. area. And I remember, you know, the first Atlanta Olympic Games were in '96, and the Nagano Games in '98, and the Sydney Games. And I remember we kept talking, and, you know, like the internet can actually do so much to help with the coverage of the Olympics, because you know how the networks do a great job, but they package the stories about the star athletes and they put them in that 3 or 4 hour window at night. That's great, but there are so many sports that are played, so many athletes from different, and they're not covered, right? But the internet can do that. So I remember being invited to an Olympic New Media Summit in Lausanne in December of 2000, because people were saying, can't we put some of the internet on the, the Olympics on the internet, just TV? The answer was no. So we went to a conference, and I was there representing AOL, and we had an NFL exec and an NHL exec. And I remember a couple of broadcast guys standing up in the audience said, I run sales for this network. As long as we're paying $1 billion, you're never going to see content on the internet. It's going to be on my air. We're paying for it. And it's been remarkable to see the transformation over the last 20 years. I mean, the digital numbers with the London Olympics in 2012, the Rio Olympics in 2016, it's unbelievable what it's doing. It's really just expanding the reach, and it gives you the fans more access to their favorite athletes, their favorite sports.
What do you see as the change with the pandemic? I mean, we saw it with Japan. China, obviously, is going to be much more closed. How does that impact the games, do you think?
I mean, I think it's toughest for it's really tough for the athletes, right? Because they're used to getting the adulation from the crowd. It's obviously tough for the sponsors, because a lot of times the sponsors pay a lot of money, but as part of that package, they're bringing over their executives and top clients. A lot of business gets done there. That's not happening in Tokyo, and it won't happen in Beijing. But the cool thing, what's happening is it just shows sort of the transformation of what's going on in sports media. Like at the end of the day, how many fans can actually go to the ice skating finals? Maybe 15,000, 20,000, but how many people are going to watch it? Hundreds of millions of people. So the reality is it's the fans outside the arena who have been catered to, are being catered to much in a better way with new technologies.
It's crazy though. There's something about the Olympics, though. I remember recently just watching this. You just get hooked. You watch this
amazing.
race, and you don't know who any of the players are or anything like that, and you're just glued to it for forever. And you're just like you buy in. What is it about it, do you think?
I think the fact that these Olympic athletes, they're putting in 2, 3, 4 years of hard work to do this, right? And countries are different, but they're not really getting paid here in the U.S. Well, some countries will pay their athletes. They're putting everything. They're suspending education, marriage, full-time job. And I think people really relate to those stories. And I think TV does a great job, but now with digital and social, where the athletes can engage directly with their fans, it even adds more to the story, right? And they're just so many great stories about Olympians over the years.
I think about baseball, and to me, it's a 3-hour event. But I think about the attention spans nowadays. Is that a sport that's in jeopardy with the young people? They just can't.
The answer is almost absolutely yes. Again, when I ask my younger students what sports they like to follow, I'm a baseball guy. I love baseball. I grew up playing baseball. I played till I was 50 in the 30 and over league. Season ticket holder of the Nats since 2005. It's tough to see, and part of it is the attention span. These games are 3.5 hours, sometimes 4 hours, and the younger generation won't sit through that. They like their sports 2 hours or less, and that's why soccer is taking off, right? Lacrosse is becoming more popular, and now F1 is becoming popular with the younger generation. So you're actually seeing these dynamic shifts going on with the younger demographic.
And speaking of young people, I kind of think that the younger people now are global citizens as well. My daughter teaches in Scotland. My son studied in Germany, and and they were never. It may be the beautiful game, but they were never soccer fans. Now they're huge soccer fans. And I think about soccer, and I think about what you're saying about basketball, and I think about the NFL now playing in Europe. You almost have to be a global player now, don't you? I mean, it's like a corporation in a sense.
I give a ton of credit to the great commissioner, David Stern. I was fortunately, got to know the commissioner over the years, and I've heard him tell the story a couple times. He actually had the vision to make the NBA a global sport. So I remember him telling stories that he would go to China every year in the 80s. No, kept being told. Finally, in 1992, he opened the first NBA office in Beijing. And what you have to think, that's also very historic, because that's also the first year the professional athletes were allowed to play basketball in the Olympics. And that's the Dream Team. Arguably the greatest team of all time. Michael Jordan, Patrick Ewing, Charles Barkley, on and on. But what that did was that made NBA a globally popular sport. Right, and it tied in with, he had the vision for Beijing, and Adam Silver was his deputy commissioner. Now his commissioner has totally embraced those same concepts. So I think Commissioner Stern had the foresight to open the office in Beijing, and then they started doing international TV distribution deals back in the 90s. So they were in over 100 countries, and that was the first sport that got that and embraced it.
One final question before you go. Your thoughts about if we have this conversation, the same conversation 5 years from now about sports, how will things change? What might the conversation look like versus today?
So here's what I would say. Sports will continue to be more and more on mobile. It's going to be much more interactive. And really the whole key now that's happening over the next few years is the data game and the analytics game. Like, data is the new gold. And so from a business perspective, NBA, NFL, they put their games on the broadcast networks, cable networks. It's great. But the cable networks can't tell you who's watching their air, right? Just the way it's programmed. But with mobile, because you have to register for that mobile app or for that over-the-top network, all of a sudden you're capturing data about the customer. That completely changed the game, right? And so for a team, they could market better. I know here the Washington Wizards, it used to be paper tickets. Now the tickets are almost all digital, right? And then when they're digital, you know a lot more about their viewing habits, when they're coming and going, if they're buying beer, they're buying soda, they're buying hot dogs, and then you can send them emails and target to them much better. And so the analytics is really changing the game. And so what they call the direct consumer model is something the leagues are taking a huge look at. And you're going to see more and more, because the younger generation, I don't know why, Mike, they'd rather watch a game on that iPhone than a 65-inch TV. And part of it is because that phone is the center of their social unit. That phone is everything to them, and they're tethered to it, and they don't want to let it go. And they also like watching the game. They also like being able to interact, right? Interact with their friends, even interact with the athletes, interact with the clubs. So there's a lot there. So I think it's just going to become more global and digital.
Jimmy, what a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much.